No. Yeah, she's broken in there. Well, hey, welcome back to Freedom One Garage. We've been gone for a few days doing family stuff, all kinds of fun family stuff, and journeying around the Midwest, picking up parts and pieces and trucks and things like that. But we got a couple customer cars that we got to get on here. If you follow us on our Facebook page, first thing we got to get running here is this little guy, 1973 Chevy Malibu. It says it has a 350, not for sure. It's got the it's a Chevy V8 for sure. I'm not sure it's a 350 or something else, but belongs to a high school kid in the town where we live in, and it quit running. Died on the side of the road. And I've been there as a high school kid. I tinkering on cars and whatever, and I had a car that from time to time just dies, but after so many times you get kind of sick of it, and you want it fixed. So we're diving into this today to see what's going on with it. So yeah, Chevy V8 in the front, automatic car. Now we pulled it to the shop here with a tow rope. Didn't have enough juice to start or even crank, and we thought maybe it had some electrical gremlins, but that was probably just because we were running on 8 or 9 volts of battery, and things just don't like it when you do that. But I did go ahead and hook up jumper cables. Let's see what we got with the key on here. Here we go. Fuel gauge is pegged. Okay, we had a buzzer. Whoa, oh my gosh. I'd say we have some sort of an electric, it's either an air compressor or a really loud fuel pump under the back end. We do have oil light and charge light and a brake light. Let's see if it cranks here. Let's give her a couple pumps. Okay, she didn't want to go at all. Let's not get too crazy. Golly, that's loud. Let's do a little investigating here. Woo, holy moly. How's the guy supposed to go to school with that? Let's see what we got going on here. Do we have... Yeah, okay, so the mechanical fuel pump has been blocked off down here. It would normally sit right in this area, so we bypassed that, and which means we're probably listening to a clicky clack pump in the back. Let's see if we can see that. Let's go here. All right, the usual. We got 11 soccer balls in here. Trunk looks pretty well sealed up. I don't think we're gonna. Any tennis balls, still footballs. Golly, he's in the sports. I'm sorry for the wind again. It's Nebraska. I can't see a fuel pump. Oh, here we go. Here's a clue. We do have a red wire right there, and then I can see a wire here. So somewhere up in this general area above the tank, there's probably a fuel pump, electric fuel pump mounted. That's just fine, but it's not pumping, so we gotta figure out why. Or maybe it is pumping and we don't have spark, I don't know. Okay, so we looked at the fuel gauge. It was pegged, it didn't move at all. So it probably doesn't work. Teenage Driver fuel gauge doesn't work. Let's look under here again. Okay, looks like we got a fairly factory fuel tank. Ooh. That's about as empty as you get, folks. Yeah, she's empty. Okay. That could explain the noisiness of the pump. But just to make sure, let's go get the squirty bottle. Alright. This is just unleaded fuel that I was using on another project. Andy squirt some in there. According to my son, this car usually runs pretty good when it runs, so that's, oh my gosh, there's that noise again. Let's see. Oh yeah. Fired right up, sounded great. So we've got a fuel issue. I think we better run into town with the gas cans and put about 5 gallons of gas in this car before we misdiagnose something else here. Okay, so we put about 4 or 5 gallons of gas in the car. It still will not run, and that heinous fuel pump noise is still there. So Jalen came out and helped me. Jalen's home from work, and we got it in the shop, got it up on jack stands, and then let's go take a look here at what we have back here. We've got it's a facet pump. It's mounted directly above the differential on a little tab with just one screw. There's one self tapper holding it in, and there's a filter on the inlet side, so that's good. But I don't like the mounting position, number one, because if this car were to bottom out real bad, it could come up and connect with this fuel pump line and rupture it, cause it to break. And it's just a really smallish looking pump. So we're gonna pull this out, and we do have a clicky clack pump, the good kind that I use from the Napa Valley, and we're gonna throw that in, make sure the car runs, and then we'll report back to the owner and see what they want to do about all this. Yeah, otherwise pretty clean car underneath. There's a little damage on the muffler, must have bottomed out somewhere, but we'll see. Let's get it running and then we'll go from there. Okay, once again on the 73 Malibu with a Chevy V8. For some reason the mechanical pump has been bypassed and blocked off, and we have an electric pump. So old pump is out. You know, on closer inspection, it's probably not a horrible quality pump. Anyway, we've got our Napa Facet PosiFlow click clack pump, kind of jumper wired in here, positive to positive, negative to negative. We'll go ahead and make sure that this is where our fuel problem is, and you know, for the record, we disconnected the fuel line and it was completely dry. So not getting fuel out of the tank was the correct diagnosis. Now let's see if this pump will help to fix that. All right, first off here, let's, oh, much better noisies. Ooh, there we go. The fuel pump is on, guys and gals, just so you know. Yeah, this is going to be our issue here. Here we go. She's a runner, just like that. Got a hole in the muffler over here. Got a pretty decent exhaust leak. I don't think they're concerned about that as much as they're concerned about the car not running. So, but yeah, we're in pretty good shape here. Let's shut it off before we burn through our test leads here. Yeah. So what's the moral of the story? You have a couple issues. First of all, fuel gauge doesn't work, so that causes the operator of this car, or the operators of this car, I'm sure, to periodically run it out of fuel. The mechanical fuel pump is bypassed, and it's got a electrical fuel pump on it, electromechanical fuel pump on it. Not that big of a deal. Those pumps will run a long time, but they don't like being run dry. And obviously you could tell by the noise that original pump was not happy. This one, yeah, once it got primed, it's quiet as a mouse. So we're going to report back to the owners and see what they want to do. At the very least, it needs a fuel pump. I'm going to recommend that we change the location of that pump as well for safety's sake. And then, you know, if they want a fuel gauge and stuff like that, you know, we'll just have to chat. So, but hey, this one's going back on the road one way or another, and we'll give you an update in just a little bit. Well, that was a pretty quick response from the owner. She wants us to, number one, fix the fuel gauge so young man stops running out of gas. Number two is a great idea. She's asked that I check and see if we can't go back to a mechanical pump driven off the engine. So we're going to do that, and if we can't do that, then we will go ahead and replace the electric pump, but make sure that the fuel gauge works, and maybe we won't run those pumps out of fluid and keep burning out pumps. But I'm a little intrigued by the mechanical pump option, so we're going to jump right in and pull the block off plate off the side of this small block and see if the bits are in there to run a mechanical pump. This car sits really low to the ground, plus I've got the back end jacked up about 3 feet in the air, so I'm actually on my knees here working on that. I don't think I've worked on a small block in the knees in a while. You know, looking at this car, it's definitely worth saving. It's a pretty solid car. It's got the Chevy V8 small block. It's a power steering, power brake, air conditioning car. You know, yeah, it's a 73, so not the most popular body style or year, but you know what? Still pretty dang cool. Alright. Well, there's the block off plate. Let's see what we got in here. Oh. No. Yeah, she's broken in there. Haven't quite seen somebody handle this way before, but here's what we got going on. We're not going to be able to go mechanical without doing some pretty significant surgery here. Yeah, so this should be the actuator for the pump, and that has obviously somehow gotten jammed or stuck, and somebody has basically cut it off, ground it down and cut it off and left it kind of stuck in there. Yeah, I suppose not the end of the world, but we'd have to do some pretty significant surgery to make this so it can have a mechanical pump again. So, all right, option A is out the window. But if we can get the fuel gauge fixed and at least make it so the tank doesn't run dry so often, that should help. These Napa clicky-clack pumps should run for years without major service. So let's button this back up and we'll move on to fuel gauge. Okay, we moved to the inside of the car, to the dash and instrument cluster. Specifically the fuel gauge, right? So here's how it looks. We've taken the bezel off, the bezel. We've taken the bezel. We took the plastic thing that covers up all this off to get to the actual gauge. Now, one thing, this is pegged, which means it could just be a bad gauge, or it could be there's no power going to the gauge. So one way to check that pretty easily to see if you at least have power going to your gauge is you can just kind of go boop and do that, and then we'll turn the key on and see maybe that's just a dead gauge. Doesn't seem to be just a dead gauge. The gauge seems to want to just go way past full until it pegs out just about horizontal. So we've got power going to the gauge. I did see that there is a wire going to the top of the tank in the back, and I did see that there's a ground wire coming from the top of the tank and going to a decent ground in the back of the car. So probably my guess would be either we've got a bad communication electrical signal between the gauge and the sender, or number 2 could be a bad sender, or number 3 we could have a bad gauge. But we'll get this disconnected on this end, and then we can check some of the resistance in the ohms for the actual gauge and make sure that that's accurate getting to here. If it's not accurate getting to here, we got to go find where it gets lost. This is handy. You got one little teeny screw here, and you take off 2 1/4-inch screws up here, and you can pull this lens off and the fuel gauge. And the back of the fuel gauge has 3 threaded connectors that slide into those 3 receivers. And then on this side, you have your little red lens that fell out onto the floor. It goes there for your generator light, your oil light, and your temp light. So that gets us a little easier access to the fuel gauge. So that's it for tonight. We'll pick it back up in the morning. All right, let's recap here. We got the 73 Malibu with the bad electric fuel pump. We've already investigated. We can't put a mechanical pump back on this motor. Somewhere along the line before we got to it, that mechanical assembly got boogered up. Engine seems to run fine. So we're going to go back with another electrical, but we're going to have to do it in a way that it's much more reliable than it has been. The first thing we got to do is get the fuel gauge to work so he doesn't run out of fuel anymore and run that pump dry, because that's really what's killing these electric pumps. So to do that on these General Motors jobs, getting my tripod, sorry. So the fuel gauge circuit, pretty simple. You've got, I got the door open on the shop. You got a pink wire supplies voltage to the temp gauge and a fuel gauge. You have a tan wire that goes from the gauge back to the tank to the sender, and then on the back side of the sender is where you get your ground. So the gauge is reading the resistance in that tan wire. And depending on where your float is, it's 0, 90, or no, yeah, 90 should be full, I believe. and 0 is empty-ish, right in there. That might be backwards, but I don't think it is. Most of these GM cars and trucks, your main wire harness for the lights and everything that's electrical in the back of the car comes down along the inside, under the kick panel, in through here, up and through the trunk, and then we'll split off. And as you can see here, we've got some electricals going to the lights and this and that and the other. It comes right back here under the dash, and then bingo, we've got a tan wire that drops down through, and this is our cinder wire right here. First thing we're going to do, check and see what we got going on with that tan wire. We're going to ground it and see if that should bring our fuel gauge all the way back to empty. And if that works, then we got some cinder issues. If that doesn't work, then we got to investigate more towards the gauge side of things. So let's do some testing back here on this tan wire and see where it gets us. There we go. Looks a little, connector's a little dirty. That might be some of our issue. So got her disconnected back here. And we'll come back up here. Insert our gauge back into where it goes. Still reads past full. Now we should, if we ground the tan wire coming back, and on the ground here. There we go, right there, that guy. That should cause our gauge to sweep back to empty. And there it goes. All right. I think we're okay here in the dash. In fact, I think we're okay all the way back to the cinder. So let's come back here now again. And let's read resistance to ground on that circuit here. I have a feeling we're completely open. Put it on the horseshoes. Yep. We're completely open to our ground. So we've got nothing going on in the tank right now at all. All right, so we've got a bad sending unit. Let's see. All right, guys and gals, there's choices for clicky clack pumps. You can get them a lot of different places, on the Amazon, on the Rock Hard Auto, the Irish Part Store. I've tried just about all of them. Here's the one I keep coming back to for carbureted applications from the Napa Valley, 6101051. I've had to toss these in a Jeep to get it off the side of a mountain, literally. There's one in the Studebaker truck right over there, because that fuel pump for that truck is god awful expensive, and these are cheaper. They're about $70 once you get out the door, but I've had really good luck with them. That's what I use, so take it for what it's worth. I do, when I put my fittings in, I Teflon thread them. Some guys don't, some guys do. I've never had them leak when I Teflon. I have had them leak when I don't use Teflon, and I just try to twist them in there as far as they'll go. So that's my experience. Take it for what it is. We're gonna go slide under the Malibu and mark this off on the frame where we want to mount it to, and we'll show you the new mount location, and then we'll show you how they had the old one mounted and why we're going with a different scenario. So okay, so here's where we're at. Previously the last fuel pump was mounted to this bracket, and that's where, with the stock configuration, you would run your fuel hoses through to hook up to feed and return, which are up here. They had one self tapper in there holding that fuel pump on, and it's, as you can see, right above the rear differential, which I didn't like. So we actually drilled 2 new holes into the frame cross member. We got one little loop of fuel line for the out to the front of the car hooked up. We haven't hooked up the feed from the tank because the tank's not back in here, and then of course the return is not hooked up. We do have created a new ground, so all the electrons will be happy, and then we just got to connect those 2 ends of red wire. We're not going to do that right now, because if we have to cycle the key to diagnose other stuff in the near future while we're waiting for this fuel sender, we don't want to run this pump dry. So that's where we're at. We're ready to go as soon as we get a sender, and then now we can go in and button up the dash and put the interior of the car back together, and we're in pretty good shape. Okay, it's still super windy out. It's a warm day, but gosh dang, it's windy. We're done with the C65 for a little bit. Back on the 73 Malibu, when I got this to run off of the bottle, I heard a weird noise up here. So we did a little investigating when we were checking the fuel pump issue, and we found this guy. So that's about as bad as one can get, I think, before it comes apart. This is the thermocoupler on the fan clutch. There's still some resistance there, but obviously we've got some bearings and bushings or something that are just gone. So we're gonna swap this out real quick for this young man so he doesn't lose his fan through the back of his radiator one of these days. All right, so unfortunately the new part did not come with the studs, so we're going to extract. We've got 2 done, but I'll show you a little video here on how you extract studs out of old parts or what have you, so you can reuse them. The process is really simple. Take 2 of your nuts, put one on, and leave enough threads so about the whole second nut can get on the threads, and you put them on there together, cinch them up against one another, and then you come back to the inside nut or the lower nut, and that'll back out that stud then. Not too bad. Then you don't want to get too big of a hurry, because next then leave your 2 nuts on your stud, because then you're going to use that same leverage to install the stud in your new part. And this one we just go until it bottoms out. And we take our 2 wrenches, come back in here. Easiest way is just take them and squeeze. And repeat for the last one. Alright, back over by the car. We've got our 4 studs installed on the new thermocoupler clutch assembly. drop our fan on there, maybe. Loud. They give you new lock nuts. They probably do that for a reason. So we're going to go ahead and use those. And we just need to torque to spec. And these get torqued to about there. Slide it back in, and hopefully our bolts start back without loosening belts and things. And there you have it. New thermocoupler all tidied in there. No more play. Life is good. So here's something pretty cool. We're at the point to the Malibu here where we've got everything done pretty much that the customer would like us to do. We're waiting on a sender for the fuel tank. Cool thing is a customer reached out to me and said, hey, my son is interested in this stuff. Can he come and hang out and help you? And I said, heck yeah. So Friday, I don't think he'll care. Alex is gonna hang out with us Friday evening. The part should be here by Friday. We're gonna put this tank in together, and he's gonna learn about a little bit about his classic car. So that'll be cool. Okay guys, I don't know what's going on, but Alex showed up. We had a good little intro video with Alex, and the last couple of weeks we're having issues with videos on the GoPro either not formatting or glitching or being corrupt and making it to the computer. I just switched to SanDisk Extreme Pro micro SD cards about 3 weeks ago. I've got another brand coming, and it's lost in shipping. Imagine that. It's delayed or whatever. But so we're going to skip ahead, I guess. I'm not going to complain too much, but if you have a suggestion, any other YouTubers that might see this, what are you using for micro SD cards? Because it really gets old when you think you have a day of stuff and then you have, 10 minutes and then important parts just gone. It makes it really difficult to stitch stuff together. So if you have ideas, let me know. I really appreciate it. I'm using a GoPro Hero 9. It's up to date. I format the cards in the GoPro, so there's no issue with formatting in the laptop. Sometimes I can review them on the GoPro, sometimes I can't. So it's somewhere between the card and the GoPro. But anyway, if you have any ideas, let me know. We're gonna skip ahead, and I just want to let you know actually on a video rather than just typing it in there and putting a little message on there that, hey, GoPro screwed up again, because that's been happening quite a little bit lately and I'm a little sick of it. So anyway, back on the video. Let's get Alex back on the road. Okay, we didn't film a lot of the struggle because it was a little embarrassing. It took 3 of us, but tank's loosely fitted. Now Alex and I are gonna rattle it home and get our final connections made. A little loud. Take that and get her on there, and then just pull the trigger and suck it all the way in. Okay, you can only fit so many people and so many tools under the back end of the car at the same time. We figured that out. But back on the ground, Alex is going to take it for a little test drive here. I think we got it figured out. We've got a gas gauge now. That'll help a lot. And seems to be running pretty good. So he's going to take it for a little road test and give us the final verdict when he gets back. There we got her. We just had to get her lined up a little better. Beautiful. Sounds good. Well, that thing sits low. Happy, Alex?
I am.
All right. Okay, we're done with the 73 Malibu. I'm just gonna say this, Alex, if you ever want to upgrade on the car, do something little with it. If you want to do like upgrades, put a stereo in it, something like that, you buy the parts and I'll help you out. You know, we won't charge you a ton of labor. We do this kind of to keep kids interested in these older cars. So we'll do that and go from there. So she's yours again, and it's ready to rock.
All right, cool.
Well, that's it for the Malibu for now. Hopefully Alex keeps driving this car, keeps improving upon it. We'll help him out wherever we can. If you like this kind of stuff, comment down below. Thanks for liking and subscribing and following our stuff. We'll catch you on the next one.